In this video, we're going to be talking particularly about a type of exercise which is really common to use and to be prescribed for Achilles tendonitis or tendinopathy or tendinosis, and we're going to use those interchangeably. Those type of exercises we're going to discuss today are bent knee exercises, and we're going to talk about why they may be of use, why we might prescribe them, and what the current evidence base says. Hi, I'm Ali. I'm one of the physios from treatmyachilles.com. Treatmyachilles.com is an online physiotherapy platform to treat all kinds of different Achilles problems. If you would like to find out more information about our services or book an appointment, please see the information below. So before we delve into bent knee exercises, just a quick overview, which I'm sure some of you are aware of, but as to why we might choose them in the first place. If we look at Achilles tendon anatomy, we can see that it's been made from two calf muscles. Those calf muscles are your big calf muscle at the back called your gastrocnemius, and as you can see by the picture, this goes behind your knee and above ever so slightly. And then we also have the muscle that stops at your knee and below, and that's called your Soleus muscle. So if we were going to be looking at strengthening both of these tissues, which then turn into that Achilles tendon, we need to look at exercises that bias both of those muscles. The more strength we get in those muscles, the more robust that Achilles tendon is, the more it can cope with different activities that you may be finding painful or difficult or struggling to do at the moment. So we tend to look at exercises that may bias one, which is the typical standing with straight knee type exercises like a calf raise, and then on another side we would look at maybe some more bent knee exercises to bias the soleus muscle. So there are a variety of different bent knee exercises that you may be given, and different people are given different ones for many different reasons, including personal preference, how strong and fit your tendon is before we start, how it's coping with daily activities, so how robust it is, your symptoms, what access to equipment you have, and what your presentation is, how long you've been having this problem, what strength training you've done before. I'm just going to run through a couple of three options of some bent knee exercises so we all know what we're talking about. One option can be seen in the image above here, and that's using a leg press machine that you may typically see in a gym. Typically in a gym, you would put your feet onto the plate of the leg press machine and push, bending and straightening the knees. When we're looking at this for a bent knee calf exercise, you would stay with bent knees and you would push the calf machine away by pointing your toes and bringing it back to you. A nice seated bent knee exercise can be where your knees are in line with your heels, and you would go up into a calf raise and back down, and you would do a certain number again of repetitions. If this becomes quite easy, which it can do quite quickly as we're not standing and therefore have less weight going through, you can add a weight onto your lap and do the same thing. And this can also be done in using gym equipment such as a Smith machine. And a really common standing exercise can be with your knees bent and raising up and down, keeping your knees bent the whole time. And this can be done on one leg or two legs. Those are just some examples of some bent knee exercises, and there are others as well that you may again have been prescribed or given by a practitioner. As to the number, the sets, the repetitions, the amount of weight, or whether you're going faster in one direction, slower in another, two legs, one leg, going up on two, down on one. As you can see, there's lots of variations, and that's why it's important when you're looking at your own individual case to speak to somebody who would be able to find out where you're starting to and where you need to go to. So we're now going to be discussing why we might need to use bent knee exercises. Now, not everybody needs bent knee exercises. Some people may never need them at all, may never use them, might not work for people, and therefore they have tried them and have moved on to something else. And that's completely okay and completely fine in regards to rehabilitating this tendon and this tendonitis or tendinopathy. what we're looking at here is a research paper and some of the evidence base that's out there about why we might use them. And one very interesting and quite new piece of research that came out in 2022 by Funaro and his colleagues, we're looking at why we might be doing that, what happens in the tendon, where does it affect what they call peak strain. So where is it working at the hardest when they compare lots of different typical Achilles exercises. And one of those was a bent knee exercise, and it was the single leg lowering. So it was up on 2, swap over to 1 and lowering down in the standing position that we just looked at. The aim in the study was to try and see whether we could start to individualise exercise prescription even further by looking at what type of tendon people had, how it was made up with different fibres, what position we needed to bias those fibres in depending on where they had the tendonitis or the tendinopathy within that tendon itself. So if you were to have a look at some of the other videos that have been done, you will that you can find the links for below, you will know that we don't have a tendonitis or a tendinopathy change in every fibre of our tendon. It is actually only a very, very, very small proportion. So when they were looking at these different exercises, they found that the bent knee exercise had the biggest peak strain for the Soleus tendon. So it biased the Soleus part of the Achilles tendon the most. And not only that, it also changes where you might have felt that peak force in the tendon. And it moved from being further away, so lower down in the tendon, to more of that mid portion area. So mid portion of your Achilles is one of the most common areas and where we get an Achilles tendinopathy. The mid portion area is normally in this section of your Achilles tendon here. As that Achilles tendon goes down, that's closer to its insertion point, and as it comes up, it goes into the muscle. So that's your muscle tendon junction. So this mid portion is this midsection here, which is one of the most common areas to get an Achilles tendonitis or tendinopathy. So this gives us a bit of food for thought. I think I mentioned that sometimes people have tried bent knee exercises and it's made them worse, or they've not been able to get on with them, so they decide to move away from it. Or it also may have had a chance to do these exercises right at the beginning when they first tried doing things. They've done some straight knee and some bent knee, and it may be one of the reasons why the bent knee exercises has caused a flare-up. Because now we know if we're doing those exercises and it's putting that peak strain into that mid portion, well, if you have a mid portion Achilles tendinopathy, then that's like pressing on a bruise and expecting that bruise to feel more comfortable. So therefore, if that was happening to you and there wasn't a way of adjusting those bent knee exercises to make it feel a little bit more comfortable in that first instance, then it may be that there's something to bring on later in the rehab when your Achilles is already stronger because you've been doing some other strength exercises. So therefore it can withstand that increased strain into that mid portion. So that's maybe the more negative side to things, but the more positive side to things may also mean that we can see why people might have got a bit stuck. So you've been doing loads of straight knee based exercises and been doing them for ages and ages and ages and not quite turned a corner. Now, it's important to note here that we don't just do the same exercise all the time and expect us to get stronger. That's like me going to the gym and starting doing my bicep curls with a very light weight. If I didn't then put that weight up over the course of the next few months to a year, I'm still not going to be able to lift anything heavier next year. I need to put my weight up as I can manage that light weight and do it. I need to make things more challenging. Now, that's the same with a rehab program. So, but let's say you've been doing that and you've been trying and trying and trying with some straight knee exercises and not any bent knee ones. It may be something that then is important to add in, particularly if you have a mid-portion Achilles tendinopathy, and it may be a bit of a game changer. So as you can see, there are so many components to consider just with a bent knee exercise. Which one, how many, what weight? Do I do it at the beginning? Do I put it in a bit later on in my rehab? Is it because I'm flaring up? Is it something I've not done before? And that's why we don't give recipes out of this is how many you do and then you move on to this, because every single person is different. And that's why it's important to get a tailor-made plan. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about that, again, have a look at our website and our booking information below.